Yeah, poetry is like a mirror in a sense for me. Not always a perfect mirror because come to a page with biases, but I definitely have seen more of myself in the poetry I write and poetry of others as well as I read it.
Yeah. So what do you think it means to be a good man? What
Yeah. My name is Isaac Akanmu. I am a poet and financial analyst in the Charlotte area. I grew up in New York in a Nigerian American family, and yeah, right now I'm enjoying Charlotte and growing in who I am as a person. One thing I've realized is that uh, being a healthy man includes expressing weakness when it's there, and asking for help and realizing that you can't do it all by yourself. So that's something I've been learning more about and trying to grow with and developing. Working through like past like trauma or upbringing or just dealing through uh, like childhood and stuff like that can be difficult to ask for help. For me, I find like the spiritual side of things difficult for me to ask for help. Um, it's like spiritual things can be very like personal, and when I open up, I find that it takes a lot of work to first try to discover what's going on inside of me first, and then trying to share it. So I do find that like a difficult place for me to ask for help. But when I do, it's been like helpful in the very least, and it builds a humility for sure to be vulnerable, transparent with someone, not knowing how they're gonna react. Um, it's definitely a healthy building of humility that I think I need, and probably most people too. I would tell a younger version of myself to look upward instead of so much of around. I think, you know, I know not everyone shares this worldview, but the greatest example of how to be a good man, a healthy man, I see is from God, from the Bible, from the example that Jesus Christ set and those who pointed to him. So I think it. I spent time like looking at culture and subcultures and um, trying to trying to understand what it would look like for me to be a man through those lenses. But I think really looking up is that's where I am now, like trying to look up and look at a different standard and take the things from culture that I think are positive, the things from family that I think are positive, and implement those as opposed to just taking all of that and thinking that's how I should live. So, um, yeah, I think if I was talking to a younger version of myself, I would say definitely to look upward instead of around, not to compare, but to find that place where I am the healthiest man I could be. One thing that was challenging for me is the expectation. There's different expectations, but one that was challenging for me was uh, the the way masculinity and uh, sexuality are like almost like side by side in a lot of senses. Um, Even from like a young age, like folks would ask like at an unreasonable age, in my opinion, like, well, how many girlfriends do you have, or like, uh, like you must have a lot of girls or something like that. And that was something that, I mean, I was, let's say, I can remember being asked that at the age of 13. At that age, I didn't have any girlfriends. So it was almost like, well, am I missing some type of mark here? Is there something that I'm not understanding? Uh, or something I'm not doing right? Um, so that's, I think I never really became that person, but that would, chase after women, try to, gain numbers in a sense. Um, but I had to learn to be okay with that and learn that it's probably a better way. And yeah, not trying to look at a different standard and compare myself to that and think that I'm missing a mark. Um, so that's something I've become more comfortable with now. It's funny, we talk about this at work, but like we talk about what we would do if we won the lottery. And I always say that I would show up to work the next day and keep working. I think work is healthy. I think we're all made to work on something. So I would continue my life normally, and I try to give a lot. Um, that would be one thing I would want to do for sure. Like give to my family, give to strangers, give to causes that I admire and respect. Um, yeah, so I mean, I hope my life wouldn't change that much with full financial freedom. A successful life for me would look like just being able to pour myself out for others, um, especially like loved ones and family, but then also whatever opportunity I get to love on anybody else, and just living with like a purpose. Um, I can't say that I know like my purpose fully, but knowing that I'm living every day towards something, and you know, like again, trying not to be caught up in myself, but looking outside of me, would be a successful life. Success is always an interesting topic though because uh, like, a thief could have a successful life if they, succeed in stealing. So uh, yeah, when I think about success, I think it's less on the what, but more on like how I live. Um, but yeah, yeah. I think finding an outlet was important for me. Um, I am naturally not the most talkative person. I don't really express my emotions easily in a conversation. It takes a while. I am I am not the most like bodily expressive type of person. Um, I'm not gonna express myself through dance and stuff like that. But writing has become an outlet for me to express myself and understand my emotions a little more. Um, and I think finding that outlet for men particularly is helpful, and it could be anything. Um, it could be taking walks and that observing the quietness and nature that can reveal what your emotions and stuff, um, or it could be like meeting with friends that for some could help express emotions and get in touch with them. So finding that thing that's helpful, that helps you express, I think is good for coming in touch with emotions and understanding them. I guess the thought on my mind is like being a healthy man. I think it's easy to think about it in terms of how um, we interact with women, which is, yes, indeed, like very uh, essential. But I also think about how we interact with other men, um, as well as other ages as well, older folks and people that are like children that are younger. And yeah, I think about that, and I'm curious on where ways I can interact with men in a healthier way. Um, because I just thinking about like for me like coming from cultures and subcultures where like opening up to men um, is more difficult, whether it be like pride or competition, um, or just the stigma of like suck it up, be a man. Um, but I realized that you know men could have healthy, intimate relationships with each other um, that help both to grow and be better, and could really be as simple as just listening or spending quiet moments with each other that I think uh, are really essential for a lot of men. Yeah, I am a mentor at a program for um, underprivileged children. So I meet with uh, a student once a week, and we go through homework, try to discuss what's going on in life if he's willing to open up. Um, but that's been, I hope, valuable for him, but also it's been really valuable for me. I When I think about what I seen like growing up as a child and how adults interact with children, coming from a Nigerian household, um, I've seen more of like sort of like parents or older folks kind of being a little standoffish with children and not really embracing them as much because we come from a culture that's really big on respecting elders, um, and I hope to just be accessible for my mentee, um, you know, not to be like not necessarily an authority figure, but someone who can be there for him if he needed it, or at the very least just help him with his homework. So I'm hoping I'm being that for him, but the relationship has been really helpful for me too. Um, Helps me tap into the child in me. Um, just watching him just wanting to play and just not really weighed down by life just yet. It's been really great to see, and it's helped me in a lot of areas too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard this quote um, or this phrase about being like a servant leader or um, or leading with a towel on, as in like being willing to get down and dirty to serve others. Uh, why do I think that's the best leadership? I, I think good leadership comes from love. Um, so yeah, I mean, how can men do that more? I think it's a paradigm shift, really. Like you mentioned, providing as an act of service. I think when we look at it that way, it becomes less of a prideful thing and more of from a place of humility, really. That I make money not for me, but I make money for my family. Um, so I think a lot of things can be the same almost, but just from a different point of view. Like playing with my, like if I had children, I don't have children, but playing with my children, um, that's less of like a responsibility and more of a service to them, um, or teaching them is more of a service to them. Um, but yeah, why do I think that's important? Um, yeah, I think that's like the core of like leadership and love is really service and sacrifice. Um, I think if it only comes from what I can gain, or if it only comes from romantic like sources, then that stuff can expire. Um, but like leadership and love from a service point of view, um, people's needs never expire. So I think that's a source that could always be pulled from. Yeah, I'm excited to build a life with someone that I love and care about, and just seeing what happens and going on that adventure and that journey. So when it comes to challenges in a romantic relationship, my natural inclination is to sort of bottle things in. Um, I realize that that doesn't really work for me all the time because it affects like how I view everything, and how I am reacting to things throughout the day, and just my total like disposition. I'm not really able to com- compartmentalize certain things. So yeah, what I've been trying to do is just bring things up as they come along. That um, like if I something bothered me, just trying to find time to talk about it, even if it's just a text message. Sometimes that's helpful for me to just get my thoughts and words. And yeah, a lot of things are sometimes just neutral, like no one did anything wrong per se, but just you know how I would react to a certain situation. So yeah, the short answer is I try to just bring them up like as quickly as I can when I'm able to. Sometimes it takes a little while for me to process and get my thoughts into words, but if I'm able to, try to bring things up with a voice note, a text message, phone call as quickly as possible. Uh, kindness. Yeah, I admire my girlfriend's kindness, and you see that in her profession as a nurse, but also just in the everyday, just the way she treats people, strangers, loved ones alike. I really admire that, and I'm happy that she has that quality for sure. I tend to see poetry as a sort of mirror when I write it. Um, I don't really know what I'm gonna see when I come to a page, and I don't always have an end goal with what I'm writing. But as I write and I step back and read it, I find that I see something new about myself, or even when you look in the mirror, sometimes you see something behind you, something around you that you didn't notice before. So I find that poetry does that for me, and a lot of times it it challenges my thoughts on masculinity, um, and it challenges how I got to where I am in terms of how I think about masculinity. So yeah, poetry is like a mirror in a sense for me. Not always a perfect mirror because come to a page with biases, but I definitely have seen more of myself in the poetry I write and poetry of others as well as I read it. A verse from the Bible that comes to mind is when Jesus says, "Come to me, all you are weary and heavy laden, that I may give you rest." I find that a lot to be encouragement and helps me understand that I can't do everything by myself, that I'm not going to be perfect, and that I can find rest. I can find rest outside of me, and outside of being self-absorbed and my everyday. So yeah, that's it's something I try to bring up when I'm struggling through uh, just a certain standard I have for myself, or just a tough day. A lot of times it takes a quiet moment. Um, Again, like I find that I'm most stressed and feeling uncomfortable when I'm really absorbed in myself. So taking a moment to reflect on um, the Bible um, is helpful for me because it challenges me to look outside of myself. Um, Even just a conversation with someone else helps me to look outside of myself because the world is much bigger than me. So puts things in perspective. Um, a lot of the times it's little things that uh, could be weighing on me, and it's not really a huge deal. But speaking to someone else, putting myself to the side, listening, often helps me too. I would say a good man is a leader, and a leader not in a dictator type of way, but a leader in a servant type of way, and also a lover, someone who loves even if it hurts, loves all the way down to the core, and loves even if it's sacrificial. Fur mink. So you want to see a grown man cry? There, behind the tree, you'll see a baby boy in a man's body, hiding, seeking, peekabooing. When you find him, simply tell him, "I know what you did." He shall surely cry. And should you desire to dry his tears, find his life giver, his father, his daddy. He will be strolling the day's cool hours, calling out for his son. When you find him, simply tell him, "Your man child cries." He will know why. He will know where. Observe his haste, his technique, as he swaddles the man child in the land's most lavish drip, until man's waterworks turn into wells of promise. It was a bunch of things that came together. I think the core inspiration was looking at the creation story of Adam and Eve, particularly focusing on Adam. Uh, Reading it one day, I realized that, well, according to his story, as it's written in the Bible, um, Adam didn't have a childhood. He was a man from when he was made. So in a sense, he's been on this earth for maybe a couple years. He's a child, but then he's also a fully formed man. And I just thought about how that can relate to me, um, and a lot of folks that are becoming a man in the body, but are still a child at heart. So that really stood out to me. I took some quotes from, there's a documentary where a famous basketball player who was just in college, but they lost the championship. And he said that line, "So you want to see a grown man cry," because he was crying after they lost. I took that line to start the poem, and just thinking about how, again, with him, he's a 6'10" person that the media looks at as this man, but also he's a child. So that was really the core inspiration for the poem. I don't cry as much as I would like, honestly. But the first memory that comes to mind is losing one of my uncles. I didn't cry when the news came. I cried at the funeral where they were showing pictures of him through his life. And yeah, it hit me. I cried and felt cathartic in a way. Like, I felt like, not that crying, you need to cry in order to mourn or to grieve, but for me, that was where it really settled in that he's gone. And it was a moment of trying to accept that, while also appreciating that he was a man on earth, that he lived, he was here, and he has a family that I'm a part of. Yeah, that was his first memory that comes to mind.
Yeah, so what do you think it means to be a good man?
I don't think there's a single definition.
Things that make up a good man are just things that make up a good person. Someone who's honest, someone who's decent.
You're also willing to express yourself in a healthy way, and you're in touch with your emotions as well.